Okay, whenever you're ready, go for it.
This is James Devine from jazzysaxman.com, and you are listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, reminding you to eat more cannoli.
I love it. Wow, I love all of that. Well done. All right, let me hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Brieanna Lightfoot Smith, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Oh, just another day of juggling the things and wearing the different hats, being a mom, being a business owner, trying to take good care of myself, drink my water, mind my business.
Hey, it's life is all a little bit too much some days, isn't it? I get it. I get it. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business there at brandsbybrie.com.
Yes, I'm really excited that we just launched a new program for women who are looking for help turning their passion into a profitable product, which is something that I love talking about and didn't realize I love talking about it. But I did a market research survey towards the end of last year and just asked the women in my community, like, what is something that you want to do next year? What's a goal that you have for yourself?
Okay.
And about 60% of them said they wanted to launch a product-based business or they wanted to sell, products. And I was like, really? Because I have 4 books that I've written, 4 books I published. Well, if we talk about written, I've probably written a dozen books, but
Right.
4 books that I've published, right? And turned a few of those books into like an apparel brand, like did a spin-off with different affirmational and inspirational messages and so it was kind of a full circle moment to see that women were interested in this thing that I had experience with, but I just never asked them if that was something that they were interested in. And
Right.
so we just welcomed in our first cohort, and I'm so excited because, the women have such different interests. One of them has a background in event planning, another one is a photographer, another one is a mental health therapist. And so just I'm
Wow.
excited to see the different things that they do, yeah, with the curriculum we created inside the program.
That sounds like it sounds very rewarding for you.
It is. It really is. I I
Right.
I I I think that people, I don't know. I tell people I think that there's this misconception of around what a business coach is. Like they're gonna tell you, okay, do this and do this and do this. And we do give you guidance, but you think about like a football coach or a basketball coach, like they can give you the plays, but you still have to run them. And so I think
Right.
that one of
Right.
the things
Right.
that's most rewarding for me is seeing people actually run the plays. And I'm like, look at you, you're really doing it.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
exciting.
And that's the thing. I I played this game. Are you a gamer at all? I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but
No, you can. You absolutely can. I play video games with my son sometimes,
okay.
and me and my dad used to play Sega Dreamcast all the time when I was a kid,
Right.
mostly sports games. Like we would play um we do football, we do basketball, like, and then when the Wii came out, we of course we got the tennis game because everybody wanted to be Venus and Serena. But those are mostly the
But
games that I've
playing
played.
Wii tennis is a workout and fun.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is. It
all the
is really
Wii games
fun.
were really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bowling too. Bowling was a
Right,
good one.
right, right. They actually nailed that. I think the Wii was
Yeah,
one of the, and you got your ass off the couch and you were moving.
exactly. You're active. Exactly.
But the game that I was going to bring up, it was called Portal and Portal 2. So it's like a 3D puzzle game, right? So you go
Mm-hmm.
into this big room and the whole room itself is a puzzle. So
Ooh.
you spend like whatever amount of time walking around, right? Figuring out, okay, what do I have to do? And then once you figure out what you have to do, then you're like, oh, okay, now I know what to do, but how the hell do I do that? Right? So you not only have to solve the puzzle, but you have to execute the whatever the solution is. And it's not easy, right? You're skill building as you go. So it's a great analog for, life, sports, business. Yeah. You have to have a plan and then you have to execute the plan. So it's completely different, And I would imagine as a coach, right, you're working with people that probably know more about what they're doing.
Right, exactly.
Right. You don't know, you're not a photographer, right?
Right.
Right. And you're not a mental health coach. So you're helping them with other stuff, with your area expertise. Okay. Which is all great. So we're going to get into more of that and Brands by Bree, but let's go back in time. This is Vroom Vroom Veer. So we need to talk about you and you growing up. So where did you grow up? What part of the country did you grow up in?
I actually live in the city I grew up in now.
Okay.
I grew up in Arlington, Texas, lived here for
Arlington, nice.
until 18, and then went off to college at the University of Missouri, was there for 4 years. Um, Went to New Orleans, lived there for 5 years, and have been back here for 5 years, which is crazy. I'm like, what? How
New
have I already
Orleans.
been back that
I
long?
love New
Yeah.
Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans was great. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was, I tell people it's really where I grew up in my faith, because I'm
Okay.
born and raised in the church, a God girl through and through. But I really feel like being in a city by myself. I'd never even visited New Orleans when I moved there. My first time coming was when I moved. Like it wasn't I
Oh,
love there.
okay.
I'm so
Oh,
excited.
wow.
Yeah.
That's a leap of
Exactly.
faith
Major
right
faith
there.
leap. Exactly. Exactly. So I
Good
think
for
something
you.
about being in a city by myself really accelerated my faith walk because it was like, okay, this is not based off of anybody else. Like you have to figure out,
Jump in.
yeah, what does this look
Jump in.
like? What does it look like to talk to God for yourself? Yeah. So and a lot of life happened in New Orleans. When I moved to New Orleans, my husband and I were dating, but he wasn't living there. And then when I left New Orleans, we were married, had a son, and I was pregnant with our second son. So that's how much life
Wow.
happened. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you were like a completely different person.
Absolutely. I
Like
really was.
literally a different person.
Hmm. Hmm. With other people that I brought back with
Yes.
me to this place
Yes.
that I
Well,
grew
you
up with.
created a
Yeah.
person. Yes.
Yes. Exactly.
Such a magic superpower that women have.
Mm.
Anyway, I have a growth story related to New Orleans as well.
Yeah.
I got to share.
Yes, please do.
And it's a little bit related to faith. So I didn't know I was homophobic until I went to New Orleans for the first time. Okay.
Mm.
I've gotten over it. I think, I've gotten over homophobia. But so the story was I was in the Air Force moving from where to where? Hawaii to Florida. Okay.
Okay.
And the Air Force I shipped my car from Hawaii to Florida, but I had to drive to New Orleans to pick it up. So because of weirdness, what I ended up doing was shipping the car a lot early so it would be there when I flew in. And
Okay.
instead of flying to Florida, I flew to New Orleans and picked up
Right.
I picked up my car, right? So
Right.
this is the first time I'm like 23, 24, right? And like this is the first time I had ever flown to a place, I think, and then driven like a really long drive all by myself, right? So like I book in I think a one night stay in New Orleans, and I'm like, well, I'm here. I have to go to Bourbon Street.
Right.
And the first place I go to get a burger, I didn't know, but it turns out was a gay bar. And everything was fine. Everything was great. And I had my burger. I had a really great conversation with a guy at the bar. Everything was lovely. And I got up to go to the bathroom as I'm leaving. And there's a lot of like, gay imagery on the bathroom. And I'm like really, really scared. Right. And I'm like, okay, I guess I am still homophobic a little bit. I didn't want to see that anyway. So I just thought that was interesting introduction to like grown up life for me a little bit as a young person. It's like you don't know what you're going to get into sometimes when you go to a burger place on Bourbon Street. Turned out the burger was amazing, and the people were
I haven't had
amazing.
bad food in New Orleans
No.
ever.
My wife and I went back to New Orleans a gajillion times when we were stationed in Panama City, Florida.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
We went to the same place and got the same Cajun combo every time because it had like a little taste of all the good things.
Yeah.
It had like all the stuff. My thing that I never get anymore is blackened catfish. I really miss
Understood.
blackened catfish.
Yeah, you're like, did
and
it
if
too
you,
much.
If you get it anywhere else, it's not anywhere
Yeah.
near as good. So
Right. It's just catfish.
right. Well said. Okay, so let's move on to like, because you just said there was a transition there, right? So after college, did you have a job for a while, or did you go right into doing business?
I actually did start my business pretty much right out of college.
Wow.
There was a need. My aunt, she has a nonprofit. It's a child care placement and adoption agency here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And she knew I had just graduated with my journalism degree. And she was like, we need a newsletter and we need someone to manage our social media and build our website. And I was like, I know how to do one of those things, which was the newsletter. I'm like, I can do that. Just like you can figure out the other part, it's
Right,
just
right.
that whole millennial, so you should be good at this kind of mindset. But
Yes.
it challenged me, and I've always been one who loves a challenge. And so did the newsletter, built them their first website, started posting for them on social media and really enjoyed it. And I thought to myself, well, if she needs it, I'm sure there's other people who need it, and I was already living in New Orleans at the time. So I actually would look at job boards for people who were hiring, but I would pitch myself as a business consultant for them. So I'm
Like a
like, hey, I see that you're,
freelancer
yeah,
gigger.
exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm like, I see that you're hiring for a social media manager. How about my company handles that for you?
Right.
It'll be cheaper than having to hire an employee that you keep in house. Da, 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 da.
Yeah. That's a
So I was
really
able to
good
get,
idea, actually.
yeah, absolutely. I still
Yeah.
think it's a great, I'm like, I recommend it to people, especially if you feel like you're not comfortable pitching yourself. I'm like, well, hey, in this instance, you're pitching yourself to someone who's already said that they have a need, and you're not just,
Exactly. It's not the
pitching
cold open.
blindly.
Yeah, it's not a
Exactly.
right. That's amazing.
Exactly.
Did that work?
It did work.
Okay.
I got my first client in New Orleans. They were a candle company. It's the only company I've ever been fired from, though, because they were like, we don't feel like you really understand our brand voice. And at that point, like I said, I'm fresh out of college. I'm like, I don't know what you mean. I don't know what a candle is supposed to sound like. Like, and
That's a
so
good
now,
answer.
obviously, right?
Yes.
That we're 10 years into the game now, so now I understand what that means. Like, okay,
Right.
yes, if you're targeting a older demographic, you want it to feel like you're speaking their language as opposed to you're just talking how you would normally talk. So I get that now, but I didn't
Right.
back then.
I get it. Yeah.
And then I actually ended up getting a role with um a restaurant group. And so that was really fun and really helped me to hone in on those skills of learning brand voice because they had four different restaurants and each restaurant had a different brand voice. Like one of the restaurants was more of the millennial vibe, another restaurant was kind of a family brand, another restaurant was really quirky and they had these
Right.
they had all these fun pastas. One of them was a cheesecake pasta macaroni and cheesecake, but it was literally like a cake made from macaroni and cheese. Like it was
I
so,
love it.
so they just had a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
That's super
And
quirky.
I got to
Yes.
really experiment with a lot of fun things, got to write menu descriptions for them. And so but again, that was looking at a job posting they had and being like, well, I have a company and we can provide these services for
Yeah, and
you.
you don't have to do any of the HR stuff.
Exactly.
Right. Yes.
It ended up being a really great opportunity. So, and then ironically enough, they actually hired me full time maybe about a year into our contract because they had a marketing manager who was leaving and they were like, well, you already know our brand. Would you be interested? And I was like,
I
oh,
don't really want want a W-2 job.
Exactly. I don't.
But you
But I
have
was
to come
also
up with
getting married.
Okay.
So I was like, maybe this is a good time to have stable income as
Okay.
we're
Oh,
like
good for
planning this
you.
wedding and
Oh,
stuff like that.
nice.
But
Yeah.
I worked for them, I think, for a year. And my supervisor, she already knew. She was like, I know this is not your forever because we kind of threw you a curveball and offered you a full-time job.
Right,
I
right,
said, you
right.
did.
Yeah,
She
right.
said, but if you could give us like a year or two, I would be so grateful. And I was like,
But that's
okay. And I think I
amazing
made
because you're
exactly a
like
year.
talking like grown-ups about things you want to do with your job.
Absolutely.
Which is great. Yeah. With HR people. That's amazing. I don't think I ever
Yeah.
did that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. Good for you. I was going to say the Vroom Vroom Veer brand, that
Mm-hmm.
was not made by me. So
Mm.
I hired a branding company, and it was just two guys. They're from Canada, and they were recommended and really good.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when I figured out what like a branding coach does, and it was
Mm-hmm.
freaking amazing, really,
Yeah.
because the psychology that goes into it, right?
Yeah.
I had no idea what was happening, but we just kept meeting I think we met for like, I want to say 6 or 8 weeks,
Yeah. That sounds
and
about right.
and all we did was what we're doing now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they would just interview me, and they were just
Mm.
picking my brain, like, what the hell is he talking about? Right? It took all that time. And then finally they were like, oh, I think the words that I said was, I was like, I'm getting close to midlife, and I
Mm.
don't want to hit the crisis. Is there a way that I can
Mm.
steer around the crisis part of midlife? And they're like, oh, we have to stop talking now. We're going to go do some work and come back because now we know what you
Mm.
want.
Yeah. So
And
that's all we need to hear.
exactly. That was, well, I think the other, 6, 7 weeks built up to that, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
the work that they were putting in was drawing that out of me,
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so sorry, I diverged. I veered a little bit. How did that 1 year job work out? And did it give you what you wanted?
Really helped me to just get more secure in my abilities as a business owner because as many entrepreneurs will tell you, a lot of us kind of fall into entrepreneurship, right? And
Right.
so because
Okay.
of that, I think there's this kind of imposter syndrome that a lot of us carry for a long time because we're like, I didn't actually plan for this. So I don't know, like
I
the
just
bottom's
kind of
about to
stepped
fall out at
into
any
it.
point. Exactly.
Okay.
And what I've realized is I'm like, okay, yes, the business itself was something you didn't foresee, but the skill set you had to develop to run the business, you had that skill set. And so I think that being able to execute on the skills that I developed in my career up to that point, because even in college, I mean, I wrote for 5 different publications. I probably graduated from college with over 100 published articles. And so just
Wow.
understanding like that was the experience that I was bringing in with me, I think it gave me a vote of confidence and seeing the way that my team at that restaurant group really trusted, if I was like, hey, I think we should go in this direction, there usually wasn't a lot of pushback. Um,
That's
and I
awesome.
think it was also great to be able to work with a creative director because they did have a like a third party company that would make all of our marketing materials as far as billboards and design for special
That's
menus and things
great.
like that.
That
Yeah,
for you, right? Because then you get to
it
work with the
was.
creatives, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
really showed me. I remember being there and being like, that's the kind of role I want to create for myself eventually, is more of a creative director where I'm coming up with the concepts and then I have a team that's able to execute and I
Yeah.
can bring back these concepts to, our clients. So it definitely fulfilled the role it was supposed to fill.
That's great. And I think like a lot of entrepreneurs probably like somewhere along their journey, either beginning, end, middle, whatever, they're
Hmm.
going to get like a W-2 job at some point. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's not.
You can not only can you learn stuff, you're teaming, you can also maybe buy a house.
Exactly. Because
Right?
they want to see that when you are applying for home loans. They're like,
Right.
okay, does if not with you, then with your spouse. They like, does one of y'all have a regular job?
Right.
Because
Right. Exactly.
we don't
Right.
want to
Right.
bet all of this on
I,
your job, even though this looks great.
I've talked to so many entrepreneurs and they're like, I got a job just so I could buy a house. So they get a
Hmm.
job, they keep the job, they get the loan, they buy the house, they quit the job.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's just crazy, It's like,
Yeah.
so you've got like two options: save enough money to buy it with cash, or get a job. It's like
Right.
kind of silly, really. It's like, well, if you're an entrepreneur, you should be a millionaire. What?
Right. Exactly. Oh my gosh. And
Okay.
I think that's what was very interesting to me, like knowing people who were making six figures, but because of the way their business structure was set up, home loan providers were still like, mm-mm, still looks
No,
too
yeah,
risky.
I know, insane. Yeah, I knew plenty of people making 5K, doing 10K plus months. Right?
Hmm.
If you're doing
Hmm.
10K plus months, you can afford a mortgage.
Exactly.
Wow. Anyway, so okay, so let's go back to your first child, and New Orleans. So,
Hmm.
at what point did the motherhood and the being the business owner, business executor become a little bit too much?
Um, I would say the way I left that job, actually, the full-time job was I passed out in my car at 7 months pregnant with my oldest.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah.
And I remember
Right.
that was it. That was, I remember going into my supervisor the next day and being like, so here's what happened.
Wow.
And she was like, well, what do you want to do? She was like, do you want to stay or do you want to leave?
Mm,
Because it was kind of, even though we hadn't talked about it,
right.
because she knew the job was a means to an end, which to your point, like, what a blessing that I was able to work with someone who already knew, okay, girl, I know this is not your forever. I know you're
Right.
not
Right.
trying
Right.
to
Yeah.
like retire from here.
Right.
You're building, this is mutually beneficial. You have skills that we need for this time frame, and we
Right.
have the stability that you need for this time frame. And so being able to know that up front was really helpful because like I said, around when I was preparing for my maternity leave, it was kind of, I hadn't said it, but it was just kind of understood like she probably won't be back after she has the
Sure.
baby, right?
Okay. All right. So they knew it was
And so
coming. Yes.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because the fact that I had stayed as long as I had was kind of like, oh wow, you really stuck it out with us.
Mm.
But after I passed out, I went into the office the next day, told my supervisor what happened, and she was like, so do you want to fight till the baby comes, or you think you're just gonna call it? And I was like, I think I'm gonna call it. She was like, I understand. I understand. And I
Wow.
literally like got my stuff together.
No two
I think
weeks.
that next
Just
day,
just walked
yeah.
out, huh? Pack up
Yeah,
and go.
basically.
Wow.
It was just kind of like, and then, but again, another blessing, we stayed in contact for a long time after that. I did contract work for them,
Sure. Yeah. You
for
did not
several
burn a
years
bridge.
after.
Yeah.
I did not,
No. That's
exactly.
great.
And I think that, even now, like I can call her up. I can call the other person who was in my department. I can call her up. She invited me to her wedding, which was like years after I left, all
Wow.
these
Yeah,
things. And
yeah.
so
That's a
it just
mutual
really showed
respect
me.
thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's just, but I think that sometimes people think entrepreneurship is what you just said. It's like burning the bridges and being like, I'm betting on myself. And it's like, okay, you can bet on yourself without having to flip off what other people are doing or,
Right.
talk bad about people who have 9 to 5s. And my dad has always been like, okay, somebody has to be the worker. Like if everybody's out here trying to be the CEO, then who are the employees that work
Right.
with the CEO? And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure.
um, I
Everybody's
would
got
say
to
that was really
everybody's got to
it.
do them.
Yeah, you got
In
to figure it out in your
entrepreneurial
own
world,
timing.
I think like there is a lot of that just rah kind of talk.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of things. It's like first, there's a little bit of honesty that people blow off. Like they'll say,
Mm,
"Look, if you're not an entrepreneur, if you don't have the wiring to take a risk on bet on you, just go get a job. Right. And then most entrepreneurs that think, okay, but I want to do it anyway, right? Just skip over that, right? It turns out I should have stopped there because I don't really have that wiring as an entrepreneur, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not for everybody.
It's not.
I would much rather just go get a W-2 job. I mean, the one thing I explored that I really did like was temp work, because it's like, especially if you're semi-retired, I've been semi-retired a little too long, but then you're doing stuff that's just amazing and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're not really
with
caring
with
so
like
much.
a fixed in though.
There is fixed income, but it wasn't even like.
No, I mean like a fixed in, like I know I'm not going to be in here for the next,
a fixed
20
in
like
and out.
yeah,
A fixed in
exactly.
and out. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure. Yeah, it was very much gig oriented. Yeah. Well, there was my last temp job. I actually quit because they were treating me as if I were an employee. So they wanted an employee, but they wanted to pay a temp, and I was like, no.
No. That's not what this is.
If you want an employee, then you got to give them employeeness. You can't expect a temp to like act like an employee. They're going to come in, do that time, and then they're going to leave. Right? You're not giving them,
and they're not going to think about this play.
No. If you want that, then you got to pay the bill. Anyway, we digress. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you and how you dealt with like running the business and balancing that with raising your kids and doing it all from home, I guess, right? My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I did a terrible job for like at least the first half a year.
Okay.
Because I tried to act like nothing in my life had changed. I was like, yeah, I mean, I have a baby, but like, okay, so,
Okay.
And
right,
I had my husband was
I can do it.
paid.
I can do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my husband was on paid paternity leave, so it wasn't, I didn't even have the traditional setup of like, no, you're faced with this every day because you and the baby are home and your spouse is somewhere else or, whatever. I was the one on the move more after giving birth. And I think that, and people would be like, oh my gosh, girl, you look so good. You can't even tell you just had a baby. And it was almost like a mind thing of like, oh my gosh, this makes me feel so good. I thought I was going to lose myself. And people are telling me like, nothing has changed. But the thing is, something huge had changed.
Everything has changed.
I am a mother now, right?
Yes.
And so
they say, neurologists say that men and women, their brain significantly changes after you have a kid. And, and it never goes back. You never become not a parent. Your brain and body, neurology, all of that neuroplasticity, it changes you. You become a different being.
You do.
Yes.
But it's almost like it didn't set in until I was pregnant with our second son.
Okay.
And then I told my husband, I was like, I think I want to close my business down. And he was like, what?
We need that money, babe.
Yeah.
We need that money.
Exactly.
Babe.
No, seriously.
Right.
We were working together. He was helping me to do the logo designs for our clients. And it was kind of like it had become this family business. But I told him, I said, I just don't have it in me to go and run and get the clients. People say with entrepreneurship, if you don't hunt, you don't eat.
Totally.
And I'm like, I don't have any hunt in me right now. So
Right. I
don't know what we're gonna do, but it's not gonna be this,
Wow.
And
yeah, I get it. Just
another faith leap.
Not enough in the tank, basically, to get it all done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't have it. I didn't, and that's really when I knew, because it wasn't even a burnout thing. I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. At least not the way that I've been doing it.
Right.
We were primarily doing websites and like I said, the branding. And I just was like, yeah, this isn't fun. I don't know why it stopped being fun, but it's not. So I'm going to pause. And I did. And I didn't open my business back up until, that was 2018. I didn't open my business back up until 2021.
Wow. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, you got a lot of mommy experience under your belt.
I did. I got a lot of mommy experience, got a lot of
Right.
cooking experience. I
Yeah,
was in the
yeah.
kitchen way more than I ever was before. But also I rested, and like
Right.
not like, oh, I was always taking naps, but it just was, I feel like that season taught me to be present and to be
Oh,
attentive to the things
yeah.
that, were within my reach, not always
That that
striving
that
for
is a
like what
huge
happens
word.
after this.
Huge.
Yeah.
Being present. I just got back into yoga, and then after yoga I go sit in the
Hmm.
sauna and just chill.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I didn't even know this, right? But
Hmm.
I'm sitting in the sauna, and all of a sudden my jaw just sort of like chills out and relaxes. And it was like the first
Mm.
time since like lockdown.
Mm.
I was like, wait a minute, what happened? Right?
Hmm.
That was what it was. It was just like that whole like clinch. It was
Mm.
just
Hmm.
not really being wholly present. It had
Yeah.
been that long, you know?
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. Just to take that pause and go, hey, I'm okay. I'm
Hmm.
okay here. I'm okay now, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Good for you. And oh, by the way, having one kid is a full time job.
Hmm.
Having two kids is probably two full time jobs. So,
Yeah.
wow.
And
Okay.
then in 2021, when I opened my business back up, we had three at that point.
Wow. Crazy. So,
Hmm.
and did I read that you are homeschooling your kids too?
Hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're juggling all of this now, right?
Yes, lots of juggling.
Right. Wow. That's crazy. So, has your business, what did you have to do in your business to like make it fit? You know,
Hmm.
right? It had to
I
change,
stopped
right?
doing it did. It
Yeah, yeah.
did. But I stopped one, I stopped working with clients that were really hard to work with.
Good, smart.
Um,
Yeah,
because I'm
fire the
like,
clients that are too much work. Right.
yeah, because I was like, if I'm gonna sacrifice this time away from my kids or away from my home or away from like taking a nap,
Right,
whatever it
right.
is,
Whatever
like
you need. Yes.
whatever I'm taking time away from, I want to be like, oh my gosh, but this is time well spent. And so for the clients who I stopped feeling like that, I stopped taking those projects on. I stopped offering like a bunch of tiny different things to just try and make ends meet of like, okay, yeah, well, we can do $150 for like a 30-minute session, or we could do,
Right,
I
right, right.
simplified my business a lot
Yeah, yeah.
because that also made it really hard to track my progress, to make consistent sales, because I'm just like, there's 50 things here. There's 50 proposal versions, there's 50
Right, right.
email threads. I couldn't create workflows because everybody's package or proposal looks so different. And so that was something else that I did. Um, and I showed up fully in my business. So that meant that sometimes my children were in the background on a coaching call, but I was primarily working with moms. So I would tell them, like, hey, my kids are probably going to be here. If your kids need to be there too, it's perfectly fine. Like,
Right.
our brains are still functioning. You will get
Right.
the recording for this. So if you feel like you need to go back and watch, you can go back and watch.
Right, right.
But all of those were major shifts that I made in my business that just made it feel like I wasn't living so fragmented, because I think that that was the frustration before, is I tried to make everything fit into its own packaging of like, okay, this is the business box, and this is the family box, and this is the faith box, and this is the finance box. And when I removed those walls in between, it was just like, listen, this is my entire life.
Right. It's one
And
thing.
these are the different, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. These are the different, so that means throughout the day, I'm putting on different hats,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just so freeing for me. And I feel like my kids benefited as well, because even my older two boys, they started learning my business pitch, like Brands by Bree, where we help you build your business and raise your babies. It's like, I love the fact that y'all know that.
They should be doing your marketing material.
Right, commercials,
That's
exactly.
right. We should get them and have them record the little thing. Okay, you
Yes,
say it.
right.
That's right on point for your brand. I love it.
It is.
Yeah. So now you're helping mothers do basically what you're doing.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about like some of your favorite clients. You mentioned, yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite clients, she knows she's one of my faves, is Janae.
Okay.
She's the mental health
Oh, wow.
professional we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier. When we started working together, she really wasn't sure what she wanted to do,
Okay.
but she was interested in potentially leaving her full-time job because it was just very stressful. She was working
Right.
in New Orleans, actually, in the school system. Two of her students had been killed, so she was seeing a lot of her students for like counseling,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she was going through some personal grief, and
Trauma
so we started
counseling.
working together.
That's no joke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot, but
And you
you
carry
know, she
that
was
too. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
do, even though people are like, leave it there,
You
you
can't.
can't
You can't.
really.
There. No.
Um, but yeah, she went full time with her mental health practice last year, and now we're working together because she has a apparel brand that she started to just keep people inspired and motivated, even in between their counseling sessions. And so I've just loved her stick withiness, I guess is the best way I would describe it, because she's someone who, like, she's going to keep at it until she gets it, until it
Right.
clicks.
Right. Right.
And another woman, it's so funny. A couple of the women who are in this new program are women who work with me, but that people say, like, if you work with somebody once, you will typically buy with them again because you're like,
Right.
I already
Right.
know you have the things,
I'm
right?
vibing. I'm vibing. Why? Yeah. Right. We don't want to
Yeah, so she's
restart. Yeah.
right, exactly. I don't have to get to know someone new. I already know you.
Right.
Um, but yeah, she's an event planner, and so we got to work together to create all the branding and her website and things for her wedding planning business.
That's amazing.
And I think the thing I love about her is just her attention to detail. It makes so much sense, right? Being an event planner, you
Right.
need to have attention to detail. But she brought that to all of our coaching sessions. And whenever I would give her homework or questionnaires or things to fill out, like, she was very detailed. And it's similar to what you were talking about, the moment that it clicked for the people who did your branding,
Right.
because she was so clear with the vision and the mission she had. It made it really easy for me to translate that visually.
Nice.
And, she has since gone on to, she does blog posts every week, and she's going to actually turn those blog posts into a devotional for couples, which I'm really, really excited about supporting her with. So those are two ladies who are just, they kind of stand out in my mind
Mm.
and have very different industries, right? Like
Yeah.
mental
Yeah.
health and event planning don't really have a ton in common, but
Right. Right.
I think both of them, it comes down to the fact that they were also willing to do the work.
Mm.
People hire people, and I'm just of the belief, like, making the investment in itself, like putting your card information, is not the thing that gets you the transformation. Like, you have to do the work that's required. You have to show up to the coaching calls. You have to come on to the, one-on-one Zoom meetings. You have to do the
Right.
strategy sessions. You have to do the questionnaires. And those people who are committed and make the investment beyond just the money, but the time,
Mm.
I think that it's just always rewarding to see the payoff that they get, because there always is a reward at the end for
Yeah.
them.
And you're sharing your growth story and all the hacks that you learned about how to make it all work while you're doing the kid raising thing.
Right.
So I know they have to appreciate that. You go, like, girl, you got to stop doing that.
Hmm.
Right. I did that.
Yes.
And I passed out in my car.
Exactly. I'm like, learn from my mistakes, please.
Right. Right. But that's great. I mean, the more we share, that's what this show is all about. It's like we all go through it. Most people don't put, like, I passed out in my car on Instagram. Here's a picture of me drooling on the back seat. That don't make it there, right? So that's why we need to share the struggle part.
Right.
I appreciate it. So I think you're doing great work. So how
Thank
can
you.
people best get in touch with? Let me see if I can say it right. Brieanna Lightfoot
Yes.
Smith. Not Brieanna, damn it. Please ask.
Yes, the best place is to go to my website, brandsbybeer.com. That has all the links to my social. It has information about the Profitable Products program on there. And we also have like kind of more beginner trainings. If you're like, I don't know if I want to start a product, but I am trying to get clear on talking to my audience, or I'm thinking about building a business, but I need to know how to do it on a budget. We have courses that are on Brands by Bree Academy that share those exact things because like I have a class in there called the Brand Builder's Blueprint that is literally like these are the steps that I went through to build a business because people, I know we kind of just sometimes entrepreneurship feels like building the plane while you're flying it, but I'm like, hey, if we don't have to do that, let's not do that, right?
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. This has been a blast, Brieanna. I'm saying it right. Thanks for hanging out with me for about an hour.
Yes, I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.